I've been a journalist for, 40 years. At the beginning of my career, I realized that I was not interested in murder like everybody else. I was more interested in suicide and in mental illness. When I was very young, I did a very big investigative piece about a series of teenage suicides in a small town in Bucks County. And it got me interested in the idea that you could tell these stories narratively, get people interested in them, have them make a difference, and have them not necessarily be sensational, and have them be stories that the families who had lost people would be willing to talk for. It's still a challenge today. We were lucky to do 12 of them for this book, but the number of really long stories about mental illness, about addiction, about suicide, about overdose, that really take you into not just the surface part, but what's really going on in people's lives. It's hard work to do. Not everybody wants to volunteer to do it. In our case, we only would talk to people who would let us use their real names, which for many people was a deal breaker right out of the box. But the ability to tell one of these stories in a long way and really have people understand what the illnesses are like, what the challenges are like, not a simplistic, get diagnosed, get this treatment, everything goes away kind of thing, it's a real privilege. And I have to say the people who trusted us with these stories took an enormous leap. Most of the things they told us, people closest to them have never heard before. We had many times where people were telling us things they never told their treatment professionals. But secrecy is a huge part of these illnesses, and our goal is to try to get people to understand the dangers of secrecy, and for the society to understand the pressures that we put on people with these illnesses. We're very judgmental of them. There's a reason they don't talk to us, and part of the reason is because we're not knowledgeable, we're not always sympathetic, and we don't have the patience for the illnesses and the people with them that they need. So part of the goal of this book is to show people what the illnesses are really like, but these pieces are all deeply hopeful in some level, even though parts of them are deeply disturbing, and that's the way we view this. Even people talking about losing a child to suicide should have a positive reason for being done. And one of the stories in the book was actually Patrick's cousin, who had lost his son to suicide, and over 7 years had never really talked about it with Patrick, with anybody else in his family. And we ended up recreating his son's life, recreating his death, and then getting Patrick's cousin and his son, who had never talked about it either, to talk about it for the first time. I believe as a journalist that this has value. I don't think it's without risk, but I think the bigger risk is to not tell the stories, and I think that that's mostly what we have done.